Okay, today we're going to continue the anatomy of the respiratory system. In the last class, at the very end of the class, we began the lower respiratory system, and that begins with the larynx, which is your voice box. Your voice box is below your pharynx, and it is at the top of your trachea. Your larynx has an opening for air to travel into your trachea and into your lungs. We just saw that in the plethora of videos I showed you. That opening is known as your glottis. Air travels from your lungs out of your mouth and nose to generate voice. As I said, if you were to fall on your back and you get the quote unquote wind knocked out of you, you really don't have any air in your lungs to blow through past your vocal cords, so you can't talk. When people get the wind knocked out, they're like, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. They have no air in their lungs. And so there's nothing to blow past their vocal cords. Okay. Now, I want to be sure that we mention your epiglottis. Your epiglottis is a flap of tissue that prevents digestible substances, aka food and drink, from entering the trachea. When you swallow, that physical act of swallowing generates a muscle contraction that forces your larynx up, as you guys saw. When the larynx goes up, it meets the epiglottis, and the epiglottis seals your larynx. Sometimes people aspirate. Aspiration is when food or drink enters the trachea. Hopefully not a lot. You don't want to have a big chunk of a hot dog go down into your lungs because you don't have digestive juices in your lungs. It's just going to sit there. That's not good. So you don't want that kind of stuff going down into your lungs. Some liquid, fine. It can diffuse into other tissues, but you don't want solid pieces of food like a grape or a French fry or a hot dog or whatever. All right. Now, when it comes to your vocal cords or your vocal folds, vocal cords, vocal folds, same thing. They appear pearly white because there's very little blood flow to them. They vibrate, which generates speech. Air rushes from the lungs. Grace was asking if professional singers and performers and opera stars have like different looking vocal cords. No, they've just had training classes where they can control their body, they can control the air in their lungs, they can control their muscles, and they have a better grasp of their system and their speech. When you have a high pitch like ah, your vocal cords vibrate very vigorously. When you have a low pitch voice, hey everybody, how you doing? They don't really vibrate very much. And when you whisper, hey, I have laryngitis, I really can't talk very loud, they don't vibrate at all. Now, why do boys and males generally have deeper voices? I mean, we're all human, but why do males have deeper voices? Grace? Their vocal cords are longer and bigger, but why? What gets them there? Testosterone. It starts during puberty. When little elementary school boys don't have a lot of testosterone. I've had some of you as freshmen. When the 1 year I taught freshman bio, I've had some of you as freshmen. And you were like, hi, Mr. Thorson, how are you? And now you're like, hey, everybody, I'm a junior playing high. What's going on? Your voice changed. You got deeper. You went through puberty. I know it's kind of embarrassing, but facts are facts. Well, I have a little reading here. I just want, you don't have to write this down. I just want you guys to know, especially the boys here. When you produce your voice, release of expelled air as the glottis opens and closes. As a boy's larynx enlarges during puberty, his vocal cords become longer and thicker, Noah. Because this causes them to vibrate more slowly, that's the deeper voice. When they vibrate vigorously, that's high pitch. When they vibrate slowly, that's low pitch. His voice becomes deeper. Until the young man learns to control his newly enlarged vocal cords, his voice, quote unquote, cracks. Noah, you ever cracked? Every boy has. It happens, especially during your teenage years. You're trying to get familiar with your new voice. Girls, I've told you this before, you are supposed to act like we have never done it. If we crack right in your face, Scout, you just need to say, yeah, I didn't hear that. Sure, okay. You pretend like it didn't happen. Prom season's coming up. You might get invited. If someone gives you a little promposal, and would you go to prom with me? Just say, sure. Don't go. My voice is cracked in this class. I know. I talk 7 periods a day. You try talking 7 hours a day, Tyler. It's not easy. You just sit there and look pretty. Like, yep, I'm Tyler. I'd like to run in the rain, and I'm the best. Well, you try talking all day, and then your voice cracks in front of a bunch of teenagers, and then you see them go, did you hear that? Mr. Thornson's voice cracked. Not cool, Sam. You laugh the most. I watch you. All right. Let's continue. What is that? If we're going down into your respiratory system, what is below your larynx? Or the proper term I should say is what is inferior to your larynx? Your trachea. Yeah. If you want to hear something really crazy, I was going to say this for next week, but let me just show you. What does it mean when someone has been trached? They have a tube down their throat to breathe for them like this. Here's another one. Do you know what a stoma is? You don't need to draw this. I'll say this next week. You have an opening in your throat. Let's say that you smoked a lot and you just had cancer in your mouth, and all the cancer is like up here. And so in order for you to breathe properly, doctors will open a hole in your neck, and that's how air is able to get through. Stuff can fall out. You have to close your stoma when you bend over. You don't want stuff to come up. Don't smoke, kids. I'll teach you more of that next week. All right, trachea. This descends from the larynx. What does the trachea lead to? What does it divide into? The bronchi. It divides into the left and right main bronchi. They go to your left and right lungs. And what do you call those microscopic hairs that are on tissues that helps to accumulate mucus? Cilia. Very good. Your trachea has cilia that constantly propels debris-laden muscles towards the pharynx. Okay, somewhat of a personal question, not too personal, but how many of you are not ashamed to say that when you got a big fat loogie, you hawk it out? Yeah, Isabel's like, yeah, of course. What else would I do? Swallow that crap? When you have a bunch of mucus in your trachea, your cilia is like this. It's propelling it up, and it goes up into your pharynx. Your pharynx is above your larynx. And this mucus could have bacteria, it could have debris, it could have dust, it might have a bunch of crap. My philosophy is, why would I want to swallow that right back into my body? Dust, dirt, debris, bacteria, hawk it out. Now, in our society, when you're taught your manners, napkin on your lap, don't interrupt while I'm talking, wait your turn, all that stuff, open the door for someone behind you, blah, blah, blah. You're often taught, don't fart in public, Jack or Jake, don't just go, make it a silent killer. Don't make it all loud and rip. Don't spit in front of people. Don't burp in front of people. You know, bodily functions that make weird sounds. No one likes to go out in the middle of a dinner and hear this. Spit it out. I'm not saying you should just make a scene yourself, but it's better out than in, like Shrek says, better out than in. Get that crap out of your body, especially if you're sick. You don't want all that mucus building up. So when the cilia pushes it towards your pharynx, get rid of it. You don't want that stuff in your body. All right. Oh, but one more thing. It is made of cartilage. Noah, do you like to play Mortal Kombat? You don't? Have you ever heard of Mortal Kombat? What do you call those finishing moves in Mortal Kombat? Come on, somebody knows. Fatalities. With the new Mortal Kombat came out in the early 90s, and now with the visuals, they have crazy anatomy lessons. I've seen one where this guy sticks his hand in someone's throat, grabs the trachea, and rips it out. Great anatomy lesson, Tyler. I'm not going to show it in public school, but you can kind of get the idea of Sub-Zero sticking his hand in your throat and pulling out your trachea and kind of playing skip rope with it. Yeah. Hyaline cartilage. All right. What is below your trachea? We mentioned it just then. What does it fork into? The bronchi. And what do you call the smaller branches? Bronchioles. Bronchi are large, and they become, oops, that doesn't sound grammatically. Bronchi lead to bronchioles. Bronchioles are smaller. It's like it's called the bronchial tree. It really looks like a tree within your lungs. I know we drew it yesterday. I'm going to draw it again. You guys don't have to draw this. You already have it once. But if I were just to do this sketch is going to do it much justice. But it looks like a couple moose antlers. But it looks really sophisticated. And what is at the end of every bronchial branch? Alveoli. That's right. Okay, let's get to that next one. This is the end of the line. When you hear me say the end of the line, this is what we're referring to, alveoli. They're also called air sacs. Here's a flash of the past. See what you guys remember from October. What is the thinnest tissue that we discussed in this class way back in October? Very good. It is made of simple squamous epithelium. Noah, I want you to say, how thin is it, Mr. Thorson? I'm glad you asked, Noah. It is 15 times thinner than paper. That paper you all are taking notes on right now, your simple squamous epithelium in your air sacs is 15 times thinner. It is very, very thin. Why does it need to be very, very, very thin? Well, what are the alveoli the site for? This is probably one of the top 5 most important things you need to know about this entire unit. What happens in the alveoli? Gas exchange. That is why it is so thin. You need to have the alveoli be so thin that oxygen and CO2 can go back and forth within them. Oxygen goes from the alveoli to where? Good, the bloodstream. And carbon dioxide goes from the bloodstream to where? The alveoli. What form of respiration is this, internal or external? We did this on Tuesday and Wednesday. Internal is from between your cells and your blood. This is external. This is external respiration, everyone. Okay, I want to give you guys a drawing now. If you happen to have two different colors, get them out. I'm going to use red and blue. I want to show you how diffusion plays a major role in your simple breathing. So this is going to be an air sac right there. What's the proper name for an air sac? Right. And this is going to be a blood vessel. A blood vessel that kind of wraps around it. Okay. Here's how my drawing is going to be, everyone. Oh, this blood vessel is called a capillary. It carries blood. Here's your key. Every blue dot will represent CO2. Every red dot will represent oxygen. How would you describe the concentration of CO2 in that capillary? High or low? And ever since you were in elementary school, you should have been learning about the basic fundamentals of diffusion. Do particles diffuse from a high concentration to low or from a low concentration to high? High to low, easy. If someone in your house is cooking chicken nuggets in the kitchen, that means that the rest of your house doesn't have chicken nuggets in there. Your kitchen is going to smell like chicken nuggets, and eventually the whole house will smell like chicken nuggets. That's diffusion. So based on that logic, which way or where will the carbon dioxide molecules diffuse? Will they stay in the bloodstream or will they diffuse into the alveoli? They're going to go into the alveoli because the alveoli have a very low concentration. Well, let's look in your alveoli. What gas is very highly concentrated in your alveoli? You just took a deep breath. Oxygen. How would you describe the concentration of oxygen in the capillary right now? So which way is oxygen going to diffuse? Into the capillary. This is why we call it gas exchange, everybody. Oxygen goes into your blood, CO2 comes out of your blood. And what does your body do with the CO2 once it is out of your blood? Grace did this gesture. Get rid of it. That's exactly it. What does your body do with the oxygen once it is in your blood? It takes it to your cells. Exactly. And what happens to any one of your cells that doesn't receive oxygen? It becomes necrotic. Good. That is basically gas exchange. Okay. We have one last thing to get to, and that's going to be the pleural cavity, and that should finish us off for today. Okay. We're making great time. Let's get to the lungs and the pleural, the lungs, the pleurae, and the pleural cavity. You may have noticed I have not mentioned the diaphragm. The diaphragm does help you breathe, but technically, what system does the diaphragm belong to? The muscular system. We will mention the diaphragm more when we get to the physiology, but don't think I haven't forgotten about it. All right, let's talk about your lungs first. How many lungs do you have? Easy. Which lung is larger? Right. The right lung has 3 lobes. Has the superior lobe, the middle lobe, and the inferior lobe. How many lobes do you think your left lung has? Yes. The left lung has 2 lobes. It has the superior lobe and the inferior lobe. Why is your left lung smaller than your right? Because your heart tucks into your left lung. And so your lung, for millions and millions and millions of years, your lungs have evolved to compensate for the spacing of your heart. Your heart is right in the middle, but its apex is right into your left lung. Good. Now let's talk about the pleurae. There are two layers of tissue that encase the lungs. And this tissue is called pleurae. I'm going to try to draw one for you. Okay, here's the lung. Notice I have two lines, guys. Those are going to be two layers of tissue. They're both called pleurae. The inner layer is called the visceral pleurae. The outer layer is called the parietal pleurae. And in between them is a gap, an opening. This is known as the pleural cavity. It can have air within it. There is air pressure in there, but it's not going to be that much. But these are the two layers that actually coat and surround your lungs. All right. That's it. Are there any questions before we wrap it up? Okay. Since you don't get out of here for another